in the quiet corners of an old library in New York City, among dusty shelves and forgotten manuscripts, a sealed envelope was discovered. Inside was a transcript, dated 1930, bearing the name of a man whose legacy has echoed through time, Nikola Tesla. What lay within wasn't another blueprint or scientific formula. No, this was something different. It was a secret interview, one that had never been published, one that, according to a handwritten note clipped to its cover, was not to be released until humanity is ready. That statement alone was enough to raise goosebumps. For decades, Tesla has been celebrated as the brilliant inventor behind alternating current, wireless energy, and groundbreaking ideas far ahead of his time. But this document revealed something else, something few ever imagined. Tesla had spoken openly about the soul, about what happens after death, about energies not only of the physical world, but of the invisible realms beyond it. The interviewer's name is lost to time, but the questions remain. And Tesla's answers? They are unlike anything recorded in science or philosophy. He spoke not as an engineer, but as a man who had peered beyond the veil, who had studied not only light and electricity, but consciousness itself. This wasn't just a conversation about life. It was about what lies beyond life, about the truth of the soul's journey, about death not as an end, but as a return, as a transformation. And now, nearly a century later, as our world stands on the brink of profound spiritual awakening, the seal has finally been broken. In this video, we'll explore Tesla's hidden words, revealed at last, and journey with him through the mysteries of the soul, the afterlife, and the boundless energy that connects all of existence. Because perhaps now we are ready. When asked in that lost interview whether he believed in the soul, Tesla didn't pause. He didn't hesitate. His answer was firm, simple, and profound. "I do not merely believe," he said. "I know." It's a short sentence, but in those few words lies an ocean of experience. This was not a man guessing, hoping, or relying on faith alone. This was a man who had spent his life unraveling the secrets of the universe, electricity, magnetism, resonance, and had come to a conclusion that went beyond science, that there is something eternal within us, something untouched by death. Tesla explained his belief with a concept that feels as relevant today as ever, that all matter is, in essence, compressed light. He said, "What we call matter is simply light held at a lower frequency, its vibrations slowed down to the point where it becomes visible and touchable." From Tesla's perspective, everything is vibration. The chair you sit on, the air you breathe, the sound of your voice, even your thoughts. But what's more, he believed that vibration is not just a mechanical or physical principle. It is the very language of consciousness. He described memory not as something stored in the brain like files in a cabinet, but as a kind of energetic imprint, a frequency held in place by our soul. To Tesla, the soul wasn't a vague or mystical idea. It was real. It was structured. It was a field of energy that survived the body and held the essence of who we are, our awareness, our emotions, our accumulated wisdom. In this view, consciousness doesn't end when the brain stops functioning. Instead, it shifts, it moves, it rises to a higher vibrational plane. Just as a radio can no longer play when the power is cut, the music still exists. It simply needs a new receiver. Tesla saw the universe as a grand symphony of frequencies, each soul a unique tone, each life a pattern of resonance. Death, then, was not silence, it was a change of song. So when he said, "I know," it came from a place far beyond belief. It came from years of witnessing the invisible dance between matter and energy, and understanding that life is only one chapter in a much longer story, a story written in light, in a rare moment of vulnerability. Tesla shared something most scientists would never dare say out loud. Late one night, Deep in his lab, surrounded by coils of electricity and humming machines, something happened. He had been working for hours. No food, no sleep, only focus. The static in the air, the pulse of energy. It was overwhelming. And then it was as if his body disappeared. I was suddenly floating, he described, looking down not just at myself, but at the city beyond the walls. He said he could see the rooftops, the glow of the street lamps, the quiet breath of the night. But he wasn't dreaming. He was awake, conscious, and fully aware he was no longer inside his physical body. Tesla believed that at this moment, his consciousness had separated from matter. He had entered a finer vibration, a higher frequency, where awareness was not bound by skin or gravity. He didn't call it mystical. To him, it was science, a function of frequency. Just as a radio wave can travel beyond the tower that generated it, so too could human awareness stretch beyond the body. It was an experience that forever shifted his understanding of life and death. Tesla often said that objects remember, not in the way humans do, but in the way that energy does. He believed that every event, every emotion, every word spoken in a room leaves a trace, a vibration that lingers in the space and even in the object around it. A wooden chair, a metal door, a simple stone, all of them hold within their atomic structure a kind of electromagnetic memory. He explained it like this: when someone cries a room, the emotion doesn't vanish. It moves outward, imprinting itself on the surroundings, like heat from a fire absorbed into the walls. Tesla claimed he could sometimes feel these imprints, not visually, but energetically, waves of joy, sorrow, fear embedded in physical matter. He saw buildings as repositories of human feeling. He believed cities pulsed with the invisible echoes of everything that had ever happened within them. And if you could tune into the right frequency, you could read the past, not through time travel, but through energy recognition, through resonance. This, he believed, was why some places feel heavy while others feel light, why some rooms carry peace and others tension, regardless of who's there now. It's not superstition. It's science, just a kind we haven't fully measured yet. Tesla often described the universe not as a machine, but as a melody. He believed every living being gives off a kind of song sung a vibration like a musical note in a cosmic symphony. Trees, animals, humans, even thoughts. He called it the music of light. He explained that just as light can be split into color through a prism, our soul's frequency can be felt as a kind of tone, subtle yet real. It changes with emotion. It deepens with wisdom. It brightens with love. And when the body dies, Tesla said, that tone doesn't disappear. The light simply leaves the container. He believed the soul continues to resonate in a higher dimension, one that isn't visible to our eyes, but can be sensed by those attuned to it, like hearing a soft harmony after the orchestra has stopped playing. He even suggested that some people, those he called sensitive receivers, could pick up these soul frequencies. They feel the presence of a loved one who's passed. They hear music with no source. They sense warmth when no one's there. To Tesla, these were not coincidences. They were echoes of souls, still singing, still shining, forever part of the great vibration that connects all things. He believed that when we die, our soul returns to this harmony. We don't vanish, we join the music. Tesla once recounted an event that shook him to his core. It was a quiet afternoon. He was in his lab, working, as always, alone, immersed in thought of energy and time. Suddenly, without warning, he collapsed. Not from exhaustion, not from illness, but as if something invisible had struck him from the inside. For a moment, he said, the world went dark. He felt a deep wave of sorrow when he couldn't explain. It wasn't fear. It wasn't pain. It was grief, a kind that felt ancient and personal. When he regained consciousness, he was confused. But later that day, a telegram arrived. His closest friend, one he hadn't seen in years, but to whom he was deeply connected, had died. At the exact same hour, Tesla had collapsed. He didn't call it a coincidence. To Tesla, this was evidence of something few dared to explore: the invisible connection between souls, a link that transcends space and time. He believed that those we share true bonds with, bonds of love, loyalty, or deep emotional resonance, remain tied to us through an energetic thread. And when something happens to one, the other can feel it no matter the distance. He once said, "The universe is alive with unseen strings. The heart pulls where the eyes cannot see." Science had not yet invented the instruments to measure such things, but Tesla was certain they were real, because when a soul leaves the physical world, the bond doesn't break. It vibrates, it echoes, it reaches out, and sometimes we feel it. Tesla believed that dreams were not just the random byproducts of sleep. He called them the soul's secret passageways. He described dreams as bridges, doorways between dimensions, where the conscious and the unconscious, the living and the departed, could meet without fear or formality. More than once, he spoke of dreams that foretold events before they happened. He would dream of a conversation, and days later, it would unfold word for word. He would see flashes of machines not yet built, and sometimes he would see faces of those who were no longer alive. But perhaps the most mysterious part was not just his dreams, but the dreams others shared with him. There were moments when people from distant places, people he barely knew, would write to him describing dreams of standing with him in a lab, of watching the same experiments he had done in solitude. How could this be? Tesla believed that when we dream, our souls momentarily return to the source, to the universal field of consciousness. In that space, free from the limits of time and matter, we connect. We remember. We receive. He called it the shared dream, a place beyond language, beyond death, where the soul is not alone. It was his belief that the dead can reach us through dreams, not to haunt us, but to guide us, to comfort us, to remind us that we are never truly separated. In this way, Tesla saw sleep not as a break from life, but return to the deeper truths that live beneath it, where the soul, even if just for a few minutes each night, is free to remember where it came from and where it is going. In the later years of his life, Nikola Tesla became more withdrawn from the public eye. Many thought he had grown tired, maybe even eccentric. But behind closed doors, Tesla was working on something few would ever hear about. A device unlike anything built before, not for energy, not for communication, but for something far more profound. He called it the echo catcher. To understand it, we must first remember what Tesla believed: that everything in the universe is energy, and energy never dies. It only changes form. So what happens to consciousness, what we call the soul, when the body dies? To Tesla, the answer is clear. It remains, not as a ghost, not in physical form, but as a vibration, an energetic signature, still echoing in the vast field of space-time. The echo catcher was his attempt to capture that echo. He described it as a sensitive receiver, tuned not to radio frequencies or light waves, but to subtler vibrations, imprints left by consciousness after death. Most people would laugh at the idea, but Tesla, he wasn't like most people. Late at night, in the silence of his lab, he would activate the echo catcher. No static, no dramatic voices, just faint impulses, soft pulses of energy, whispers. And over time, Tesla began to hear something unexpected. Patterns, rhythms, even phrases, not in spoken words, but in impressions, as if thoughts themselves were reaching out. The most haunting message he claimed to receive was this: "I'm still here. Help me remember." To Tesla, This wasn't just poetic. It was evidence. Evidence that some form of awareness lingers beyond the veil, that the soul, disoriented after death, still seeks to recall who it was, why it existed, and where it's meant to go next. He described it like hearing the echo of someone shouting across a great canyon, distant, distorted, but undeniably human. Consciousness, he said, is like a melody. The body is the instrument, but the song plays on, even when the strings are gone. Was it real? Tesla never claimed proof in the way science demands, but he believed that belief itself was a form of perception, that the soul, much like electricity before it was understood, simply needed the right instruments to be noticed. The echo catcher may never have made it into textbooks, but for Tesla, it represented the next frontier, not in physics, but in spirit. To listen, not just with ears, but with awareness, to detect the quiet vibrations that say, I was here, I still am, and perhaps to remind us that no soul ever disappears. It only waits, echoing, until someone chooses to listen. To Nikola Tesla, the soul was never a mystery. It was a certainty. He didn't speak of it in religious terms, but in the language of nature, energy, and the cosmos. He described the soul as a drop of water, temporarily separated from the great ocean of energy that gives life to everything. When a person dies, he said, it is not an ending but a returning. The body dissolves, the thoughts fade, but the soul returns to its source, not to disappear, but to remember. It remembers where it came from. It remembers what it learned. And most of all, it remembers love. Tesla believed that love is not an emotion. It is a frequency, a force, a guiding current in the vast river of consciousness, stronger than death, deeper than fear, and more eternal than time itself. He once said, if you want to understand the soul, do not study the brain. Study love, that is where it came from and where it longs to return. But the soul's journey doesn't always end in that return. Sometimes it comes back, again and again, rebirth. What many call reincarnation was something Tesla quietly accepted, not as superstition, but as a logical path of growth. Just as water evaporates, rises, and falls again as rain, so too does the soul cycle through lives, each time learning more, refining itself, becoming more conscious. In his view, the universe is a vast school. Each life is a classroom. Each sorrow is a lesson. Each joy is a remembrance of what we're truly made of. He believed that souls often return to the same groups, pulled together by invisible threads of love and karma, that a child's strange familiarity or a stranger's eyes that feel known are echoes of past lives whispering to the present. But why do we return? To Tesla, the answer was simple: to evolve, to learn kindness, to experience courage, to understand suffering, to choose love even in the face of darkness. And each time we do, we rise a little higher in frequency, becoming clearer, wiser, closer to the source. He described the soul's evolution like tuning an instrument. Each life, each experience, adjusts the strings until the melody we play becomes harmony with the great symphony of the cosmos. And in that harmony, we remember we are not just bodies. We are not just minds. We are ancient light, learning to shine brighter, guided not by fear, but by love. Because in the end, Tesla believed, it is not death that decides the journey of the soul, it is love. Love that calls it forward. Love that brings it back. And love that helps it finally find its way home. Why? We might wonder, are these revelations the ones Nikola Tesla hinted at, so rarely spoken of in mainstream science? Why do we learn about his electrical experiments, but not his visions of the soul? The answer, Tesla believed, lies in fear. Not just the fear of the unknown, but the fear of losing control. Throughout history, institutions, religious, political, corporate, have used fear of death as a tool, a silent leash on the human spirit. If people knew they could never truly die, Tesla once said, how could they be controlled? A soul that remembers its immortality cannot be ruled. A heart that knows it will love again cannot be bought. And a mind that is free from fear cannot be silenced. Tesla's discoveries about energy, vibration, consciousness were not only scientific, they were spiritual revolutions waiting to happen. But revolutions are dangerous to those who benefit from silence. Many of his most profound notes, particularly those dealing with the soul and life after death, disappeared after his passing, locked away, hidden, buried under labels like unscientific or too radical. But truth has a frequency, and even when buried, it resonates. It finds its way into our dreams, into our questions, into moments like this, where we begin to remember who we are. The moment we no longer fear death, we become truly alive, and that is something no system of control can afford. Tesla once whispered truth so simple yet so vast. We are light that has forgotten itself. He believed that deep within each of us, beneath the layers of doubt and fear, shines a spark, an ancient memory that we are more than flesh, more than thoughts. We are eternal light, momentarily shaped into human form. And death? Death is not darkness. It is the body exhaling and the soul remembering. The soul doesn't end. It expands. It returns. It continues the great journey, learning, loving, evolving. When we remember this, even for a moment, something shifts. The fear loosens its grip. The noise of the world fades. And we begin to live, not as prisoners of time, but as travelers of light. So now, dear listener, I ask you, what part of this message awakens something in you? Have you ever felt that someone you loved was still near? Have you had dreams too vivid to be dreams, memories that don't belong to this life? Share your story in the comments below. Let's open a space for truth, for questions, for the quiet memories that stir in all of us. If this message touched you, if it sparked something real, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who may need to remember who they truly are. Because together, we are not just learning, we are remembering. And in that remembering, the light returns, not from the outside, but from within.